Artificial happiness. Sunlight poured through the bay windows of the Malibu mansion, glinting off white marble countertops and the intricate silverware that was rarely used except for show. Alex Carter leaned back in his designer chair, savoring the last sip of coffee as he scanned the business pages on his tablet. Yet, even among headlines and shares, his gaze occasionally drifted toward the spiraled staircase, listening for the familiar sound of heels descending. Sarah always moved with grace. Even now she seemed to float into the kitchen, her silk robe catching the morning rays. She pressed a gentle kiss to Alex's cheek, her lips soft and practiced. "Don't work too hard today," she said, voice tinged with warmth that felt, to him, both comforting and fragile. "I won't," he replied, trying to read her mood. Lately, he'd been doing that more often, but he shrugged off the thought, chalking it up to nerves over the upcoming merger. He'd built his company from a garage startup to a California powerhouse, and life, on the surface, was exactly as he dreamed. They'd come a long way, the two of them. Their wedding photos still hung in gilded frames along the hallway, two bright-eyed dreamers, promising forever as the Pacific sparkled behind them. The world envied Alex. Smart, ambitious, beautiful wife, ocean views. As he watched Sarah pour herself a cup of coffee, her diamond ring caught the light. He remembered the day he'd given it to her, how she'd cried with joy, whispering that he was her everything. That memory still warmed him, but now, just faintly, it was tinged with something else, a sense that the air between them had changed, barely perceptible, but real. "Big meeting today?" she asked, settling across from him. "Yeah, could be a game changer," he said, forcing a smile. "After that, maybe we could have dinner together. Just us." She smiled back, but her eyes slid away, toward her phone, buzzing silently on the table. "If I'm not caught up at the spa." He nodded, knowing better than to push. In the silence that followed, he tried to convince himself, again, that all couples hit rough patches, that the pressure of ambition and success was just a phase. But as Sarah left the kitchen, her movie like they used to. Instead, he walked into an empty house. The lights in the kitchen glowed softly, but Sarah was gone. Her BMW wasn't in the driveway. He called her, not out of suspicion, just habit. A simple, "Hey babe, where are you?" Her voice on the other end was light but strained. "Sorry, Alex. I'm at the spa with Claire and Jen. I lost track of time. Don't wait up." It wasn't the words, but the way she said them, something brittle in her tone. As he hung up, he stared at the orchids in his hand. They looked ridiculous sitting alone on the kitchen counter, petals trembling in the air conditioning. Sarah began arriving home late more often. Sometimes he'd find her staring off into space, eyes unfocused, only to snap back with a forced smile if she noticed him watching. The shared jokes and lingering touches that used to define their mornings had faded, replaced by distracted nods and the constant presence of her buzzing phone. One night, Alex woke to find the bed beside him cold and empty. Padding into the hallway, he saw faint light beneath the office door. He found Sarah in a half-dark room, whispering urgently into her phone, her back to the door. She jerked when he stepped in, dropping the call with a quick, "I have to go." "Everything okay?" he asked, heart racing with something he didn't want to name. She smiled, too quickly. "Just talking to Claire. She's having a rough week." He wanted to believe her. He wanted to pretend this was just stress, that all her secrets were innocent. But when she slipped past him, the perfume she wore wasn't one he recognized. Days turned into weeks and the list grew. New jewelry she wouldn't explain, unexplained charges on the credit card, hurried showers at odd hours. Alex felt the ground shifting under his feet, the lines of his perfect life blurring at the edges, threatened by shadows he couldn't quite make out but couldn't ignore. He told himself not to act paranoid, not to accuse or chase wild suspicions. Still, every night, As sleep evaded him and Sarah whispered into her phone in another room, Alex wondered, when exactly had his reality started to slip through the cracks? The truth revealed. The first shot inside Alex. Daniel Foster, his biggest competitor, the man who'd once tried to buy him out, now apparently sharing secret moments with his wife. Alex sat motionless, the call still live, as he listened to the two of them exchange promises and inside jokes that should have belonged to him and Sarah. Every word etched itself into Alex's heart, equal parts fire and ice. When Sarah got home that night, 2 hours later, humming a tune and tossing her bag onto the counter, Alex watched her from the shadows of the stairway. She called his name, then, seeing no answer, vanished into the hallway to change. Alex needed proof, something undeniable. He didn't want to believe it, but the facts stalked him like wolves as days passed. He grew quiet and watchful. He checked Sarah's GPS history on her phone when she wasn't looking and found she'd spent evenings in neighborhoods she'd never mentioned. He looked at her receipts, her text, the way she guarded her phone if he walked too close. The final blow landed late one Saturday. Alex drove past a downtown restaurant on his way home and saw them, Sarah and Daniel, seated close together in a dimly lit booth, her hand lost in his. No disguises, no attempt to hide. Alex parked a block away and watched from a distance, his heart slamming, every detail burning into memory. That night, as Sarah slept, Alex stared out the bedroom window, rage and grief warring inside him. Here lay the life he'd built, years of love, graft, and sacrifice, fractured in a single heartbeat by the two people he least expected. He wanted to shout, to confront, to demand answers, yet all he did was sit in shadow and silence, swallowing the truth. The man he trusted least had stolen the woman he trusted most. For the first time in their marriage, Alex realized that what he once called happiness had been nothing but a painted veil, already half lifted now, stripped away completely. Collapse. Sarah didn't wait long after the secret spilled open. It was almost as if, freed by the lie being exposed, she shed the last shreds of pretense, her gaze cold and unwavering when she summoned Alex to the living room late one Sunday afternoon. Daniel really had it all figured out, didn't he? The muscles in her jaw tensed, but she didn't answer. There was nothing personal left, just business, a transaction. My lawyer will contact you. I want half of everything. House, cars, retirement, the company shares. That's fair, Alex. His world tilted. You built nothing. The words burst out. You didn't make the sacrifices, the sleepless nights. She cut him off. I was part of your life. That counts for something. You can fight all you want, but you'll lose. Daniel's firm is representing me. Of course. Betrayal, written twice. After she was gone and her perfume still clung to the furniture, Alex lost hours, maybe days, drifting through his empty house. Friends, afraid of choosing sides, stopped calling. Rumors spread in their circles. The entrepreneur who wasn't careful enough, the husband who lost his grip. Headlines in local business magazines poked at his reputation, speculative articles diagnosing what went wrong. Worse than the gossip, worse than the loneliness was the uncanny silence. No laughter, no footsteps except his own. Every photo became a rebuke, memories he couldn't trust anymore. Nights turned into haunted hours, sleep escaping him. He found himself staring at the ceiling, the weight of failure pressing down. He kept wondering over and over how it had come to this, how the woman he'd given everything to could look at him and see only an obstacle. But in that emptiness, something else began to fester, cold and precise. The pain of betrayal in time calcified to resolve. Maybe Sarah and Daniel thought he was broken, done. Maybe they thought wealth was everything, that victory was as simple as taking what wasn't fully theirs. But they didn't know Alex. Not really. Not yet. And as the sun crawled over the Pacific once more, Alex made a quiet promise, not of forgiveness, but of patience. The end, he realized, was only the beginning. Hints of revenge. For weeks, Alex functioned on raw instinct. Animals do. Suspicious, careful, cataloging threats. The world had shown its true face, and Alex was learning to smile back with his own. At work, he became an even more elusive figure, living in the shadows of his company's corridors, overhearing conversations, watching loyalties bend. He noticed a junior analyst whose name kept coming up in Daniel's cross-company maneuvers, an IT contractor who suddenly had more cash than made sense. Piece by piece, Alex started to build a map of Daniel's influence, like a detective in his own life. Late at night, unable to sleep, Alex combed through public records, searching for links between Daniel's firm and his own key clients. He found subtle patterns, contracts sliding Daniel's way after Sarah's filing, business relationships eroding at the edges. It was slow poison, almost invisible, but deadly if left unchecked. One stormy evening, as rain battered the darkened windows of his home office, Alex found himself staring at Daniel's picture online. His rival grinned in some glossy article, arm around Sarah, champion of the modern business romance. Alex's jaw clenched. He called up Riley, his most trusted friend and one of the oldest managers at his company. Alex spoke quietly, his voice stripped of anger but sharpened by intent. "I'm not looking for sympathy," he told Riley. "I just want you to keep your ears open. Something doesn't add up. If you see anyone leaking data, jumping ship, I want to know. Before the market knows, before the press knows." Riley hesitated, then nodded. "Whatever you need, boss. You're not alone in this." It was a small promise, but it was enough to ignite a flicker of hope in Alex's chest. Maybe alone he'd been vulnerable, but with time and strategy, he could fight back. Not petty, impulsive revenge. Alex had learned over painful nights that the sweetest retribution wasn't destruction, but outmaneuvering the people who thought they'd already won. As the days passed, he let his pain become a compass. He asked subtle questions in meetings. For good morning, Alex showed up at the office early, before the sun burned away the marine layer clinging to the coast. He stood in his corner glass office, scanning the familiar sprawl of cubicles, the hum of phones coming to life, the aroma of burnt coffee. Mundane, comforting. He started with Riley, calling him in for a chat under the pretense of strategy. Riley's easygoing grin dimmed when Alex opened up about his suspicions, laying out the pieces he'd uncovered. Daniel's manipulations, possible moles, the subtle sabotage. Instead of shock, Riley's face tightened into something like resolve. "I always thought that guy was a snake," Riley muttered. He placed a firm hand on Alex's shoulder. "Count me in. Just tell me what you need." Over the next week, Alex reached out to others, carefully vetting every confidant. There was Janet from legal, whose meticulous nature and loyalty to the company were beyond reproach. She listened quietly to Alex's story, nodding as she recalled months-old inconsistencies in contract negotiations. Then there was Malik from IT, a discreet genius who'd already suspected files had been accessed at odd hours. Let me dig a little. I'll find fingerprints, Malik promised, his tone crackling with suppressed excitement. Alex gathered them in secret, late-night meetings under the guise of staff development, encrypted email threads, whispered phone calls. Each ally brought pieces of the puzzle, reports of strange requests from management, unusual access permissions, files shared from untraceable accounts. Bit by bit, they pieced together a story. Daniel was orchestrating his campaign with quiet cruelty, leveraging inside information, turning wavering employees to his side with promises of higher positions once the dust settled. Sarah, it became clear, was more than a pawn. She was an active participant, feeding Daniel not just gossip, but strategies, sometimes even company secrets. It hurt Alex, each new revelation like a fresh bruise, but the pain only sharpened his focus. These weren't just betrayals, they were weaknesses, points where Daniel's scheme could be unspooled. One evening, after most of the staff had gone, Alex and his allies sat huddled lose. Before that night, Alex had always thought of strength as solitary, a confluence of grit and sheer determination. Now he saw it for what it really was: connection. Not just building something alone, but knowing when to reach for help, and when to fight for those standing with you. As they mapped out their first countermove, the sense of loss Alex had carried for months began to shift, replaced by something less brittle, more hopeful. The betrayal had gutted him, but it had also shown him who he could count on. And together they were about to fight back, not just for the company, but for every future Daniel and Sarah had tried to steal. Turning the tide. The assault began with silence. In the weeks that followed the clandestine meeting, Alex and his small band of loyalists moved quietly, methodically. Every action was carefully disguised as routine business: a new IT audit here, an additional compliance meeting there, subtle questions in the boardroom. If Daniel or his sympathizers noticed, they didn't show it. The office looked the same from the outside, but under the surface, a rebellion simmered. Malik's investigation paid off first. He backtracked the suspicious logins to a rogue device registered under a fake name, but with an IP address that pinged awkwardly close to Daniel's firm. Malik collected every digital breadcrumb, their pattern clear as constellations to anyone willing to see. Janet organized the findings with a lawyer's precision, creating a timeline of information leaks and a dossier thick as a brick. Meanwhile, Riley worked the human angle. He approached colleagues one by one, listening more than speaking, gauging their loyalties, dispelling rumors Daniel's camp had seeded. Slowly, cautiously, Alex's circle grew from 3 to 6, then 8. Trusted employees who believed in the company's mission, men and women who remembered what things had been like before Sarah and Daniel's shadow loomed so large. Alex felt the shift most in the air, the glances in the hallway, the invigorated energy of people who'd stopped resigning themselves to defeat. It was a subtle revolution, silent, the longest silence Alex had ever known. Then the board's senior member, a steely woman with a reputation for fairness, spoke up. "Do you have evidence of this misconduct?" Alex nodded and waved Malik forward. The data, now irrefutable, did the heavy lifting. Sarah's expression cracked first, eyes darting, lips thinning, hands twisting beneath the table. Daniel went pale, but remained defiant, insisting on legal counsel, threatening countersuits. But the tide had turned. The board called an emergency session, By lunchtime, Daniel was escorted from the building, and Sarah's position and reputation were under review. As the adrenaline faded, Alex felt a weight lift from his shoulders. It wasn't triumph in the way he'd imagined, not loud or vengeful, but quietly redemptive. He looked around at Riley, Janet, Malik, and those who'd rallied to his side, their faces shining with relief. This victory belonged to all of them. That evening, Alex found himself on the company's rooftop, the city lights glittering far below. Riley joined him, handing over 2 cold sodas in place of champagne. "You didn't just save the company," Riley said, leaning on the railing. "You showed everyone that we don't have to take what we're given. We can fight for what matters." Alex nodded, silent for a long time. The scars of betrayal ached, but beneath them something new lived, hope, real and raw. The battle wasn't completely over. There would be fallout, more threats, the long shadow of legal disputes. Yet, for the first time in months, Alex felt like his life was once again his own, guided by loyalty, courage, and the strength of those who truly stood by him. Tomorrow there would be meetings, problems to solve, a company to rebuild. But tonight, Alex let the triumph settle in, soft and warm, as the night stretched wide with possibility. Rebuilding. The aftermath of the storm was quieter than Alex expected. After Daniel's ousting and Sarah's fall from grace, the office seemed almost unnaturally calm. There were no dramatic showdowns, just the ordinary anxieties. But each one got easier. Janet shared the legal protections now in place. Riley outlined new channels for feedback and innovation. And Malik introduced improved security protocols that would ensure such betrayal could never happen again. Alex stood before his people, often uncertain, sometimes afraid, but always honest. "We were lied to," he told them. "But the company isn't just a building or a logo. It's all of you, showing up each day, believing in our mission. If we're going to move forward, we do it together. No more shadows. No more secrets." It was hard work, more exhausting in its way than the battle had been. Some employees left, unable to forgive the past, but many stayed, and new faces began to arrive, drawn by the rumor that the company was forging a different kind of culture, one based on trust and resilience. Alex found moments of grace in small victories, a shared coffee in the break room, laughter echoing down the halls, a project completed ahead of schedule. For the first time in a long while, he saw genuine pride in his team's eyes, and it fueled him. Away from the office, Alex's life slowly shifted too. He let go of the house he'd shared with Sarah, moving into a smaller place with big windows and sunlight that spilled over the kitchen floor. He reconnected with old friends, rekindled hobbies abandoned during years of bitterness. On weekends, he found himself running by the ocean at dawn, lungs burning, heart lighter. Sometimes, alone in his new living room, late at night, Alex would remember the anger and betrayal. He would see Sarah's face, Daniel's cocky grin. The pain lingered. It would never fully fade. But each day, it became a little less sharp, replaced by something steadier and more enduring. He wasn't sure what the future would bring. There were rumors that Daniel was trying to rebuild elsewhere, that Sarah had moved out of state. Alex let those rumors float by like driftwood, unimportant. His focus was here, on the present, on what he could shape with his own hands, Leadership team in a sunlit conference room. No secret meetings, just transparent strategy. Malik presented updates on projects and upcoming security features with a bit of showmanship. Janet led difficult conversations about lessons learned and further safeguards. Riley pushed for a mentorship program to help younger employees, a way to pass forward not just skills, but also values. More than once, Alex found himself surprised by joy, an unexpected lightness in the room, the ease with which people shared their ideas. He didn't miss the brittle ambition of the past, where every meeting had felt like a battle. Now, there was space for dissent, for discussion, for true innovation. The company wasn't just healing, it was reinventing itself. Outside the office, Alex's own world was quietly expanding. He started attending industry mixers again, no longer the embattled CEO, but simply Alex, curious and open to new connections. He volunteered on weekends at a nonprofit, lecturing young entrepreneurs about resilience and ethics, honesty shaped by hard lessons, delivered without bitterness. It was at one of these local business community events that Alex met Olivia. She ran a startup focused on sustainable packaging, her eyes bright with stubborn optimism. They struck up a conversation first about logistics, then about everything else, the best breakfast diners, favorite old movies, how they both loved the quiet and empty office provided after hours. At first, Alex was cautious. His scars hadn't faded. He wore them like invisible armor. But Olivia was patient and direct, meeting vulnerability with her own. They swapped stories of failure and false starts over coffee, laughing at the chaos that came before success. Alex found he could breathe easier with her, the tension of old wounds dissolving into gentle companionship. As weeks passed, the two grew closer, blending their separate routines, her bicycle always parked next to his car, his coffee cup waiting for her at the corner desk she liked to borrow. Their colleagues noticed and teased them, but Alex just grinned and let it all happen, cautious heart beating a little braver each day. Back at his company, new projects flourished. They launched a mentorship initiative, hired interns from underrepresented communities, and crafted a code of ethics that hung in every hallway. Alex wasn't just leading, he was nurturing, learning as much as he taught. One evening, standing alone, courage to let it grow. As leaves drifted down and the city lights shimmered, Alex smiled. His life, messy, altered, patched with pain and hope, was his again, more real than ever before. Opening doors. The first frost of winter coated the window panes when Alex arrived at the office early, his breath fogging in the still dark lobby. The world outside seemed hushed, waiting. There was a sense of possibility in the air, something he hadn't felt in years. With the dawn came new energy. The company had weathered its storm, but now Alex stood at the threshold of uncharted territory, opportunity layered with risk. A major prospective client, Everbright Solutions, had requested a pilot project after months of negotiation. Winning their trust could mean doubling the company's revenue and scaling up overnight. Alex called his team together in the glass-walled conference room, the city waking up beyond the skyline. Everyone sensed the stakes, and a ripple of anticipation ran through the room. But gone was the old fear, the dread that any misstep would expose weakness or incite sabotage. Instead, the team leaned in, confident, attentive, ready. "I don't want us to win this by being who we were last year," Alex began, voice steady but earnest. "Let's show them the company we've become, the best version of ourselves." Janet mapped out the legal frameworks needed to protect both sides. Riley built out a project timeline, breaking the massive venture into a series of achievable milestones. Malik highlighted proactive security measures that would set them apart in an industry shaken by recent data breaches. Throughout, Alex listened, sometimes guiding, mostly trusting, watching pride ripple across his team as they solved problems together. The days that followed blurred with urgency and hope. The office glowed late into the evening, alive with laughter, the rhythmic tap of rapid typing, the steady drone of late-night strategy calls. Alex moved among his people, encouraging, challenging, picking up coffee for interns burning the midnight oil. Every late delivery and small setback was treated not with blame but with curiosity. A new chance. Stubborn spoke louder. The morning of the pitch arrived bright and cold, the conference room filled with ever-bright executives, their sharp eyes measuring every word. Alex shared the company's story, not shying away from its darkest chapters. He spoke candidly about rebuilding, about second chances, and what trust really meant. He let his team speak for themselves, Malik's technical mastery, Janet's deft handling of thorny contract questions, Riley's warm assurance that every challenge could be met head-on. As the Q&A wound down, Alex caught Olivia's subtle thumbs-up through the glass. He smiled, tension leaking from his shoulders. The presentation ended and the ever-bright team conferred quietly in the lobby. It was Riley who saw the news first, a congratulatory email that popped up with a cheerful chime. Everbright had agreed to the deal. Contract terms were attached. Their company was about to grow larger than Alex had once dreamed possible. The jubilation was immediate and unrestrained. People laughed and hugged, some wiping away tears. In the celebration, Alex took a moment alone by the window, watching clouds catch on the city's high-rises, the world outside infinitely wide. He realized then that every door he'd walked through, every heartbreak, every risk, had led to this new beginning. Rebuilding had meant choosing vulnerability, letting others in, and daring to believe not just in a company, but in himself. Alex joined his team, feeling the warmth of their victory, hard-won, deserved, and just the beginning. The doors ahead stood open, and for the first time in years, Alex stepped through them, unafraid. The ripple effect. Success isn't a single event, Alex thought, but a cascade, a ripple set in motion by one choice, one moment of courage after another. In the weeks following the Everbright deal, the company hummed with new vitality. Old boundaries faded as people stepped up, not because they had to, but because they wanted to be part of something meaningful. Things changed quickly. More clients called, curious about what this maverick team could do. The once wary industry press now ran stories about a comeback that defied expectations. Headlines hailed Alex as a leader who'd turned disaster into triumph, but everyone inside these walls knew the truth. It wasn't just one man. Conversation. Now he allowed others to teach and lead. He held spontaneous lunch meetings, trading jokes along with updates. Sometimes he slipped away to the company's rooftop garden, inviting a different employee to join him each week. The mix of sunlight, city noise, and candid conversation always sparked fresh perspective. But not all the ripples were visible or easy. The company's rapid growth brought growing pains, stress, burnout, moments where the fear of old betrayals resurfaced. Alex was no longer the kind of leader to ignore these tremors. He encouraged transparency, asking hard questions even when it made people uncomfortable. Mistakes were dissected openly, not as cause for shame, but as seeds for improvement. Outside work, Alex's life continued to evolve. He and Olivia found pleasure in life's small rituals, shared breakfasts, long city walks, movie nights that ended with deep talks about dreams and the future. Olivia's startup gained traction, and sometimes Alex stayed late to help her brainstorm ideas, their laughter echoing in her tiny office. One Friday evening, just as the first snow dusted the city, Alex gathered his leadership team for dinner in a cozy little bistro. There was no agenda, just good food, warm conversation, and the poignant recognition of how far they'd come. Janet raised a toast. to lessons hard learned, to honesty, and to finding family where you least expect it. Afterward, as Alex walked home beneath streetlights blinking in the snow, he found himself reflecting on the meaning of legacy. The company was thriving, yes, but more important to him was the culture they'd built, one of openness, resilience, and genuine care. The last year had shattered and remade him, teaching him that real power came from lifting others up, from letting go of old wounds to make space for something new. Looking up at the night sky, crisp and infinite, Alex felt no need to rush anymore. As the city moved quietly around him, he relished the peace. In his work, in his heart, in the ripples he'd helped send out into the mean. He scheduled one-on-one meetings, sitting with people at every level and listening to their hopes and doubts. Some longed for opportunity. "We could finally take our ideas global," said Maya from marketing. Others worried, remembering how instability once nearly destroyed them. "I just need to know this place won't lose its soul," confessed Carl from IT. Alex realized that growth couldn't come at any cost. The company's heart was in its people, and nothing, not even dazzling offers, could risk that. One evening, as a wet snow whispered against his office windows, Alex and Olivia lingered after hours. She balanced her mug, legs pulled up to her chair, her eyes thoughtful. "You can't control every outcome," she said gently. "But you can choose what you stand for. Don't let fear make your decision for you." Her words lingered with him as the board convened to discuss the proposals. In a room that buzzed with anticipation, Alex took a deep breath and outlined his vision. "Growth matters," he admitted, "but not if it costs us who we are. Let's consider every option, but let's be sure the culture we've fought for doesn't get swallowed up, no matter how tempting the numbers look on paper." Malik, who had once focused only on code, surprised everyone when he spoke. "When I joined, I just wanted a paycheck. Now I care about this place. I don't want to be anywhere else." Others chimed in, their voices honest and sometimes contradictory, but always respectful. The discussion was long and at times heated, yet no one left the room feeling silenced. Alex knew that whatever they chose, the decision had to belong to everyone, not just the leadership at the top. The team drafted surveys, held town hall meetings, created open forums for questions and concerns. Trust, the fragile thread they'd painstakingly rewoven, held fast. At last they reached consensus. Instead of selling or merging, they would establish a strategic partnership, one that allowed for global expansion while keeping control of their family and a partner who believed in the journey ahead.